Good day, grade 11 students. We are now in our week 3 lesson 20 in general mathematics, and our topic for today is about rational equations and inequalities. And the objectives of this lesson is you will be able to distinguish rational function, rational equation, and rational inequality. Next is solves rational equations and inequalities and recognize real-life application of rational functions. Okay, next we have here the definition of rational equations. So rational equations can be used to solve a variety of problems that involves rates, times, and work. Using rational expressions and equations can help you answer questions about how to combine works or machines to complete a job on schedule. Okay, so I have here a table showing the definition and an example of rational equation, rational inequality, and rational function. So for the definition of your rational equation, it is an equation involving rational expression. So when we say rational, we think is about fraction. So take note that even a whole number is also a rational and its denominator is 1. Okay, so in your rational equations, we have here 2 over x minus 3 all over 2x equals 1/5. Okay, in rational equation, it says that the value of x here, when we substitute a certain value of x, the left side and the right side of our equal sign must be balanced or must be equal. So that is the concept for your rational equation. Kung may substitute ka any value of x, dapat both sides of the equation must be equal. In your rational inequality, an inequality involving rational expression. So we are using here the inequality symbol. We have the greater than or less than, greater than or equal to, and okay, let me write it down for you para ma-intindihan nyo kung sino si greater than, sino si less than. So this symbol is less than, and this is less than or equal to, and this symbol is greater than, and this symbol is greater than or equal to, less than, and this is greater than. Okay, that's the concept for your rational inequality. It states there that either the left side or the right side of your inequality symbol must be greater than or less than. Next, we have the rational function. A function of the form f of x equals p of x all over q of x, where p of x and q of x are polynomial functions, and your q of x or your denominator must not be equal to 0. Okay, and the concept for your function is, let's say we have a certain value of x, and then if we substitute this x to our function, we will have a output, or we can find the value of our f of x. So we are not making both sides of our equation equal, but rather we are looking for an output for a certain input. Okay, let's have here a rational equation or inequality can solve for all x values that satisfy the equation or inequality. So, ano siyang ginahambal ko kagina, nga kung mag-substitute ka a certain value of x, masatisfy ang aton equation or inequality. So, sa equation, dapat mabalance and sa left side and the right side of our equation. And for your inequality, so dapat, if we substitute that value of x, either sa left side or sa right side is greater than or less than. So a function expresses a relationship between two variables such as x and y and can be represented by a table of values or a graph. So for your function, we can represent this by using a table or a graph. Okay, so we have here the steps for solving rational equations. So first is find the least common denominator between all the fractions. Second is multiply both sides by the fractions or the LCD. Next is write equation with only the numerators because the denominators no longer affect the problem. And fourth is solve the equation. Okay, so we have here an example. Letter A, 1 over x equals x minus 34 all over 2x squared. And then we solve for x so that when we substitute this value of x, our equation will be balanced. Okay, let's solve now. First step is to find the LCD. So the LCD is 2x squared times x, and then we multiply this both sides of our equation. So we have now 1 all over x times 2x squared times x, since this is our LCD, and then multiply also to the right side of the equation, x minus 34 all over 2x squared times 2x squared times x, and then simplifying, so x divided by x, this is 1, and we remain here 2x squared times 1, so the answer is 2x, and then 2x squared divided by 2x squared, this becomes 1, and 1 times x, that is x times, so we have the remaining quantity of x minus 34 times x. Okay, next step is you need to do the distributive properties. So we have here x times x, that is x squared, negative 34 times x, that is negative 34x. Okay, you combine like terms, so we can combine here uh, the terms. So we have 2x squared minus x. So 2 minus 1, that is positive 1. Then you copy the variable and the exponent squared. So we have x squared plus 34x equals 0. Take note that they have a common x, so we can factor this out. So x, this becomes now x squared divided by x. So we have here remaining x and 34. Okay, let me write it for you. Di ba nag-factor out kita x? So x here divided by x, that is the x here common. So the remaining is x. So man siyang gimbutang ko sa sulod parenthesis. Okay, next we have 34x divided by x is equal to 0. Okay, so the remaining now is 34. Okay, next let's proceed here. So for x, so we can equate x equals, so we can equate here x equals 0. And we can equate also this inside the parentheses, x plus 34 equals 0. So we have here x plus 34 equals 0 is also the same as, so for x, we have x equals negative 34. Okay, so let's have here our example letter B. 3 over x minus 1 half equals 12 over x. Okay, so first is to find the LCD, which is 2x. So you just multiply the denominator 2 and x. So we have now 2x since they are common x. So no need na himunta pa siya 2x squared. 2x na lang. Okay, and then we multiply both sides by the LCD. So we have 2x times 3 all over x. So that is 6x. 2 times 3, that is 6. Then you copy x. So we have 6x over x minus, so 1 half times 2x, that is 2x all over 2. And 2x times 12 over x, that is 24x all over x. Now we can simplify this in our second step. So we have 6x divided by x, so this becomes 1. And then 2 minus 2x over 2, this becomes 1. We can cancel out this. And 24x divided by x, so x divided by x, that is 1. So we have now the remaining 6 minus x equals 24. Then we can simplify this. Combine like terms. So we have negative x equals 24 minus 6. So paano ni siya nag-negative 6? Ang 6 na di o. So to remove positive 6, nag-subtract ko both sides of the equation minus 6. So this becomes 0. So nabili na lang is negative x equals 24 minus 6. So we simplify. X equals 18. Negative x equals 18. So I multiply both sides of the equation negative 1. So the answer now here is x equals negative 18. Okay, so I hope you understand in this part. So our answer here is x equals negative 18. So when I substitute negative 18 to the value of x, it will make our equation balance. Okay, so they are just equal. You just simplify it by yourself. Next, let's do the evaluating rational inequalities. To solve rational inequality, we follow the steps. So first is to put the inequality in general form. Next is to set the numerator and denominator equal to 0 and solve. The values you get are called critical values. The critical values of a function are where the function is undefined or equal to 0, where the numerator is 0 and the function is 0. When the denominator is 0, the function is undefined. So take note of that when the denominator is 0, the function is undefined. Okay, so number 3 is to plot the critical values on a number line, breaking the number line into intervals. Fourth is take a test number for each interval and plug it into the original inequality. If it makes a true statement, then the interval from which it came is in the solution. If it makes a false statement, then the interval from which it came is not the solution. So fifth is determine the endpoints of the intervals in the solution should be included in the intervals. Okay, so let's have here an example. X plus 7 all over x plus 3 is greater than or equal to 0. So step 1 is to make the given into its general form. So since it is already in the general form because the right side of the inequality is already equal to 0, so we just proceed to step 2. So for step 2 is to find the critical numbers, that is evaluating our numerator equal to 0 and also equating our denominator equal to 0. And solve for x, so we have here x plus 7 equals 0 and x here becomes negative 7. And other critical number is x plus 3 equals 0 and x equals negative 3 is our answers. Negative 3 and we have here negative 7. Okay, so to plot this in on our number line, so we need to plot first negative 7. So we look for negative 7 on our number line. So here, negative 7. And then we locate also negative 3 on our number line. So we have here, take note that I used here a solid point and I used here a hollow point. So what is the difference between solid and hollow? If we use the symbol greater than or equal to, or maybe less than or equal to, we are using solid points, which means that the x value is included. And if we are using greater than or less than, we are using hollow, which means that the x value is not included or not part as our x value. Okay, so since 7 here can satisfy the inequality, so when we substitute negative 7, so x, okay, let's remove this. So we have negative 7 plus 7. So I just substitute negative 7 from here. I substitute to our x variable, negative 7 plus 7 all over x plus 3 is greater than or equal to 0. And our numerator becomes 0. So 0 divided by x plus 3. So that becomes 0. And that is 0 is greater than or equal to 0, which will make our inequality satisfied. So that's why I use here the solid point. Okay, oops, I forgot to substitute here negative 7. Okay, so negative 7 plus 3, that is negative 4, and 0 divided by negative 4, that is 0. So it satisfies our inequality, so we are using solid. And take note of the symbol greater than or equal to. Okay, let me erase this first. Okay, next let us substitute negative 3. So when I substitute negative 3 plus 7 all over negative 3 plus 3 is greater than or equal to 0. So take note, the answer is positive 4 all over 0 is greater than or equal to 0. So take note again that our denominator must not be equal to 0 since our rational will become undefined. So that's why nag-use kita diri solid point, hollow point. So hollow lang siya. Because if we substitute negative 3 sa aton nga mga x variable, mahimo undefined ang aton nga rational inequality. That's why hollow. Not included. Hindi pwede si negative 3. Okay, next, let's proceed to our step 4, which is creating table of values. Okay, so for step 4 is to make an interval in between from negative 7, button critical numbers are negative 7 and negative 3. These are our critical numbers. Okay. So we find a number or we look for a number which is less than negative 7. So ano nga number ang mas gamay kay negative 7? So we have here an example, negative 8. So pwede nyo man magamit sa negative 9, negative 10, depende sa inyo. But for my example here, I use negative 8. And then you make also an interval from negative 7 and until negative 3. So ano nga numbers ang pwede ta mag-substitute sa x nga makit-an ta in between negative 7 and negative 3. So for my example here is negative 5. Okay, next is to look for a number which is greater than negative 3. So ano nga number ang mas dako sa negative 3? So I choose here positive 2. So pwede man si 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It depends on you as long as mas dako siya kay negative 3. Okay, so let us substitute this negative 8 to our given rational expression. So we have here negative 8 plus 7 all over negative 8 plus 3. And that's become negative 1 all over negative 5. Negative divided by negative, that's become positive. So we have here 1/5. That's why nakuha ni si 1/5. Next is you substitute negative 5. So negative 5 plus 7. Oops. Okay, negative 5 plus 7 all over negative 5 plus 3 equals positive 2 all over negative 2. Okay, 2 divided by negative 2, that is negative 1. So we have here our negative 1. Next is substitute positive 2 from our expression. We have here 2 plus 7 divided by 2 plus 3. We have now 2 plus 7, that is 9. And then 2 plus 3, 5. So we have 9 over 5. Okay, let me erase this first. Oops. Okay. Okay, next is to verify if our test value can satisfy the inequality. So from the original, from the step 1 kagina, we have x plus 7 divided by x plus 3 is greater than or equal to 0. Okay, so let's substitute here the 1/5. So 1/5 is greater than or equal to 0, which makes our statement true. Since mas dako man gid si 1/5 kay 0. Next is negative 1 is greater than or equal to 0. Is that correct? Mas dako si negative 1 kay 0? Of course, it is false, since mas higher si 0 than negative 1. Okay, then we have 9 over 5 is greater than or equal to 0, which is correct since mas dako man gid si 9/5 kay 0. So that's why it states here that since negative 1 is greater than or equal to 0 is false. So it is a false statement. Okay, let me erase this one. And then we have now to look for the solution set. So for the solution set, from the number here, so kung i-extend pa niya to number line, we don't know what are the values. So we can write this negative infinity, and we can find here the positive infinity. Okay, so our interval or our solution set is from negative infinity up to 7. So, dili lang siya nga port sa ato number line. And then, from negative 3 until to the positive infinity. So, until this part of our number line, positive infinity. So, it can be positive 11, positive 12, 13, 14, until infinity. So you write here the solution set. So take note, in your negative infinity, I used here the parentheses. And for negative 7, since it is included, so kung included, we are using bracket. If it is not included, we are using parentheses. Okay, next, let's proceed to another example. 1 all over x is less than 4. Step 1 is to change this into its general form, making the right side of the inequality equal to 0. So we have here 1 all over x minus 4 is less than 0. So aran siya sa general form, and then we simplify this. Para isa na lang ka denominator, we have 1 minus 4x all over x is less than 0. Step 2 is to equate the numerator and the denominator equal to 0. So our numerator is 1 minus 4x equals 0. Our denominator x equals 0. And then solve for x. So we have here x equals 1 all over 4 and x equals 0. Then we plot this in on our number line. So we have here 0 and 1/4. So we locate 0 and 1/4 on our number line and 0 here. If we substitute 0 to our x variable, it will make our inequality undefined. So that's why we are using hollow, which means 0 is not included as our solution set. Next, we have 1/4. So when we substitute 1/4, 1 all over 1/4 is um, less than 4. So take note that we are using the symbol less than, not less than or equal to. So that's why we are using hollow. So again, natawon nyo to ang picture yung ginsend ko sa group chat that saying when to use hollow and solid points. Okay, next is to create a table of values. Again, our interval is from 0 and 1/4. Okay, so you look for a number. So first interval ta is x is x is less than 0. So you look for a number which is less than 0. So ano nga number ang mas nubo sa 0? So pwede si -1, -2, -2.1. So mas prefer ko yung i-use is a whole number na lang para mas sapos. But in this case, on our next interval is 0. You look for a number between 0 and 1/4. So ano nga number ang makitaan ta in between 0 and 1/4. So I use 0.01 since 1/4 that is 0.25. So from 0 until 0.25. Okay, so ang pwede tayong magamit is 0.1, 0.2, 0.001. Depends on you. Okay, next is to look for a number which is greater than 1/4. So, ang ginuse ko na lang is 1. So, pwede man si 2, si 2.5, 3, 3.5. Depends on you what number are you going to pick. Next is to substitute these x values to our rational expression. So, we have 1 minus 4 times -1 all over -1. So 4 times -1, that becomes +4. So we have 1 plus 4 all over -1. So the answer is -5. So here's the answer. Next is 1 minus 4 times 0.01 all over 0.01. So simplifying this, you can use your calculator if you want para masapos. So you have 96. Next is substitute 1 minus 4 times +1 all over +1. So the answer here is -3. Okay, let me erase this. So I hope you understand in this part of our lesson. Okay, next is to test if the points that we get is satisfy on our general equation earlier. So, kaginan siya gani. 1 minus 4x all over x is less than 0. Oops. It's less than 0. So, we substitute -5. So, -5 is less than 0. That is correct. Mas nabo man gid si -5 kay 0. Next is 96 is less than 0. Is that correct? Okay, it makes our statement false because 96 is greater than 0. 96 is less than 0. Next, we have -3 is less than 0. That is true since mas dako man gid si 0 kay -3. Okay, so since we already found our interval, so ang interval tang is from x less than 0 and from x is greater than 1/4. Okay, so sa ato yung number line, si x less than 0, diri ni siya nga part. From 0, pakadto kay -infinity. Or from -infinity, pakadto sa 0. And ang interval nga 0 is x is greater than 0 but less than 1/4. So, diri ni siya nga part sa ato number line. Si x greater than 1/4, diri ni siya nga part sa ato number line from 1/4 until +infinity. Okay, again, suliton ko ha. Si x less than 0 nga interval, halini siya kay negative infinity until 0. Si interval naman niya nga x greater than 0 but less than 1/4 from 0 na siya pakadto diri lang nga part sang 1/4. Diri ni siya nga part sang number line. Next, si x greater than 1/4, diri naman ni siya nga part sang ato number line. From 1/4 up to positive infinity. Okay, so magkuha ka sang interval since kaginang nag-satisfy si negative 5 and negative 3, so muna sila nga mga interval. X less than 0, so here, pakadto kay 0, i-shade ta ni siya nga part because meaning that all the possible number here can satisfy the inequality. Next is, we have x is greater than 1/4, next ta ni siya nga solution set. That's why ato the answer is negative infinity to 0 union of. So union, since may already nga part nga wala nadala, diri nga part is not part of our solution set. Union of 1/4 from 1/4 going to positive infinity. Okay, so that's all. If you have questions, kindly message me to our group chat, and thank you for listening.